a millionaire returns from a trip and notices the house is eerily quiet. Upon investigating, he finds his twin daughters locked in the bathroom, weak and without water for days. The person responsible was the woman he trusted most, his own wife. What he decides to do will shock you. The golden light of sunset spilled through the windows of Robert Mitchell's suburban home in Oak Ridge, Connecticut, as he dragged his tired body up the driveway. After 2 exhausting weeks closing a major investment deal in Chicago, all he wanted was to hear the familiar sound of his 7-year-old twin daughters, Emma and Olivia, running to greet him with their infectious giggles. But as he slid the key into the lock, something felt wrong. The house was enveloped in an unnatural silence. No television sounds, no children's laughter, no sign of his wife Vanessa welcoming him home. "Hello?" Robert called out, his voice echoing through the empty hallway. "Girls, Vanessa!" Only silence answered him. The air felt stagnant and heavy with a musty scent that hadn't been there when he left. The plants on the windowsill drooped with neglect. Robert's heartbeat quickened as he moved from room to room. The kitchen stood pristine but abandoned, not a dish in sight. The living room was unnaturally tidy, as if no one had lived there for days. The twins' bedroom appeared untouched, beds perfectly made, stuffed animals arranged too neatly on the shelves. During his business trip, Vanessa had sent him daily updates. "The girls are being difficult today," she had texted 3 days ago. "They broke your mother's vase and refused to apologize. Yesterday, I'm trying my best to handle them, but they're becoming more aggressive. This morning, can't wait to see you tonight. The girls have been sent to their room for misbehavior." Something didn't add up. Emma and Olivia could be spirited, but they were never destructive or aggressive. They had adored his mother, who had passed away last year. They would never deliberately break her vase. Robert had married Vanessa 18 months ago, 3 years after losing his first wife, Sarah, to a rare illness. The twins had initially been wary of their new stepmother, but Vanessa had seemed patient, understanding that blending families took time. Lately, though, Robert had noticed subtle changes, how the girls grew quiet when Vanessa entered a room, how they no longer asked to sit on her lap during movie nights. "Emma?" "Olivia," Robert called again, his voice now tinged with genuine concern. That's when he heard it, a faint whimpering sound coming from somewhere below. He froze, listening intently. The sound was barely perceptible but unmistakable. Someone was crying. Following the sound, Robert headed down the hall toward the guest bathroom. The door was closed, and when he tried the handle, he found it locked from the outside with what appeared to be a small padlock. "Girls, are you in there?" Robert called, pressing his ear against the door. The crying stopped momentarily, followed by a weak voice he barely recognized. "Daddy, is that you?" It was Emma, but her voice sounded hoarse and frail, nothing like his energetic daughter. "Emma?" "Yes, it's me." "Is Olivia with you? Are you okay?" A different small voice responded, even weaker than the first. "Daddy, we're scared. We can't open the door." Robert's hands shook as he examined the padlock. "Don't worry, girls. I'm going to get you out right now." He rushed to the garage, frantically searching through his toolbox until he found a pair of bolt cutters. Back at the bathroom door, he clipped through the padlock with trembling hands. When the door swung open, the sight before him shattered his heart. Emma and Olivia sat huddled together on the cold tile floor, their small bodies pressed against each other for warmth and comfort. Their faces were pale and drawn, their once bright eyes now sunken and dull. Their pajamas hung loosely on their frames, and their hair was tangled and unwashed. "Oh my God," Robert whispered, dropping to his knees. "What happened to you?" The girls didn't immediately move toward him, instead shrinking back slightly. Their reaction sent a chill through his spine. His own daughters were afraid of him. "It's okay," he said softly, fighting back tears. "I'm here now." "You're safe." Olivia was the first to extend a trembling hand toward him. "We tried to be good, Daddy, we really tried." As Robert gently gathered his daughters into his arms, a car door slammed in the driveway. Vanessa was home. Robert carefully lifted his daughters, shocked by how light they felt in his arms. Their skin was cool to the touch, their lips cracked from dehydration. Protective instinct overtook any other emotion as he carried them to the kitchen. deliberately ignoring the sound of the front door opening. "Let's get you some water," he whispered, setting them gently on the kitchen chairs. Their small hands clutched the water glasses, taking tiny sips as he'd instructed. "Robert, is that you?" Vanessa's voice called from the entryway. "You're back early." When she appeared in the kitchen doorway, her practiced smile faltered at the sight before her. She wore an elegant blue dress and heels, hair perfectly styled, looking nothing like someone who had been home caring for children. "What's going on?" Vanessa asked, her voice controlled but her eyes darting between Robert and the twins. "Why are the girls out of their room?" "I told you they were being punished." Robert kept his voice steady, though rage threatened to overcome him. "Punished by being locked in a bathroom? How long were they in there, Vanessa?" "Don't be dramatic," she scoffed, setting her designer purse on the counter. "It was just a time-out. They've been absolutely unmanageable." Emma flinched at Vanessa's voice and Olivia began to tremble. The reaction was unmistakable. "I'm calling an ambulance," Robert said, already dialing his phone. "An ambulance? For a time-out? You're overreacting." Vanessa moved toward the twins, but Robert stepped between them. "Don't come near my daughters." The paramedics arrived within minutes. Their professional demeanor cracked as they assessed the twins' condition. "These children are severely dehydrated," the female paramedic said. Her voice clipped with controlled anger. "They need immediate medical attention." As they prepared to transport the girls to the hospital, Martha, their housekeeper of 5 years, pulled into the driveway, returning from her week off. Her eyes widened with horror when she saw the ambulance. "Mr. Mitchell, what happened?" she cried, running toward them. "Martha," Robert said, his voice breaking, "how long have the girls been locked in the bathroom?" Martha's face crumpled as she glanced fearfully at Vanessa. I just got back today. I was gone all last week." "Tell me the truth," Robert insisted. "Please." "She threatened to fire me," Martha whispered, tears streaming down her face. "I tried to help them when I could. So I slipped water and crackers under the door when she wasn't home, but she caught me 3 days ago and sent me away until today." The ride to Oak Ridge Memorial Hospital was a blur. Robert sat in the ambulance holding his daughter's hands while they received IV fluids. Their tiny arms were covered in bruises from attempts to escape their confinement. The doctor's words hit like physical blows: severe dehydration, malnutrition, signs of prolonged distress. Based on their condition, they've been confined for at least 10 days, possibly longer, Dr. Hernandez explained in a quiet corner of the pediatric ward. There are also traces of mild sedatives in their systems, natural compounds like concentrated valerian and melatonin, but in concerning amounts. "Sedatives?" Robert echoed, his mind reeling. "Mr. Mitchell," Dr. Hernandez continued, "I've contacted Child Protective Services. In cases like this, it's standard procedure. They'll want to speak with you and your daughters." Robert nodded numbly. "Of course. Whatever helps my girls." In the hospital room, Emma and Olivia lay in adjacent beds, connected to IVs and monitoring equipment. Their small bodies looked impossibly fragile against the white hospital sheets. A child psychologist, Dr. Patterson, sat with them, using gentle questions and drawing exercises to help them express what happened. When they fell asleep, exhausted from the ordeal, Dr. Patterson showed Robert their drawings. 2 small figures huddled in a dark space, a larger figure with a red smile standing outside. The simplicity of the images made them all the more heartbreaking. "They're experiencing acute trauma responses," Dr. Patterson explained softly. "But children are remarkably resilient. With proper support and therapy, they can recover." Robert's phone buzzed constantly, Vanessa calling, then texting, "You're blowing this out of proportion. The girls are manipulating you. They've always wanted to come between us." He silenced the phone without responding and focused instead on Martha, who sat shamefaced in the waiting room. "I should have done more," she sobbed. "Miss Vanessa started giving them special tea months ago to help them sleep. Then she began sending them to their room more and more. When you left for your trip, she said they had the flu and needed isolation. 2 days later, I found them locked in that bathroom." "Why didn't you call me?" Robert asked, his voice hollow. "She monitored all your calls, and she knew about my grandson's situation," Martha whispered. "She threatened to report him to immigration if I interfered." Outside the hospital window, storm clouds gathered as night fell, mirroring the darkness that had nearly consumed his family. But in that moment, as Robert watched his daughters sleeping, he made a silent vow. This was the beginning of their healing, not the end of their story. The following days unfolded in a haze of hospital rooms, social worker interviews, and painful revelations. Robert took an immediate leave of absence from his investment firm, refusing to leave his daughters' sides, except when required for their therapy sessions or when they needed private moments with their doctors. Child Protective Services assigned a compassionate but firm caseworker named Diane Rodriguez. She sat with Robert in the hospital cafeteria, her notebook open but untouched. "We need to understand how this happened, Mr. Mitchell," she said. Her tone wasn't accusatory, but the question still stung. "I trusted her," Robert replied, staring into his untouched coffee. "I thought Vanessa loved them." With Diane's guidance, Robert began to piece together the timeline. The warning signs had been there for months, subtle at first, then increasingly alarming. There had been a parent-teacher conference he'd missed, where Emma's teacher expressed concern about her withdrawal in class. Olivia had developed sudden nightmares that Vanessa attributed to scary stories at school. Friends had stopped inviting the twins for playdates. After Vanessa told other parents the girls were going through a difficult phase, she was isolating them systematically, Diane observed, and gradually alienating you from them as well. While the twins recovered in the hospital, Detective Elena Cortez of Oak Ridge Police Department's Family Services Division executed a search warrant on the Mitchell home. What she found painted a disturbing picture. "We discovered journals in your wife's personal desk," Detective Cortez told Robert. They detail her resentment toward the girls. She referred to them as obstacles and reminders of his past. There were also browser searches about natural sedatives that wouldn't show up in routine blood work. The bathroom where the girls had been confined told its own story. Tiny handprints marked the walls where they had tried to reach the high window. A small pile of crackers, Martha's contraband gifts, had been carefully rationed in a corner. Most heartbreaking was a calendar the twins had scratched into the tile with a hairpin, marking each day their father had been away. "They never stopped believing you would come home and find them," Detective Cortez said quietly. Back at the hospital, Dr. Patterson continued her gentle work with Emma and Olivia. Through play therapy and art, the girls began to express what words couldn't yet capture. "They've been through a traumatic experience, but they're showing remarkable strength," Dr. Patterson told Robert. "They're protecting each other, which is a powerful coping mechanism in twins." In their sessions, a troubling pattern emerged. Vanessa's mistreatment hadn't begun with the bathroom imprisonment. It had evolved gradually over months. First came the special tea that made them feel fuzzy and sleepy. Then privileges were removed. No more after-school activities, no play dates, limited time with their father. Meals became unpredictable, a form of control. "She told us Daddy didn't want to hear our voices anymore," Olivia revealed during one session, her small voice barely audible. "That we made too much noise and that's why he was always working. She said if we told anyone, they would take us away forever," Emma added, clutching her sister's hand. Meanwhile, financial investigators uncovered yet another layer of deception. Vanessa had been systematically draining joint accounts, transferring funds to private accounts under her maiden name. Credit card statements showed purchases at high-end stores during the very days she claimed to be home caring for sick children. She was planning something, Detective Cortez explained. The timing of these financial moves suggests she might have been preparing to leave, possibly without the girls. One afternoon, as Robert sat between his daughter's hospital beds reading their favorite story, Martha arrived with a small pink backpack. "I found this hidden in my cleaning supplies," she explained, tears in her eyes. "The girls must have been keeping it there, where Miss Vanessa wouldn't look." Inside were treasures, photos of their mother Sarah, small notes they had written to each other, and a crumpled, tear-stained letter addressed to their father. "Dear Daddy," it read in Emma's careful handwriting, "we are scared of Mom Vanessa. She is nice when you see, but not when you don't. Please don't be mad at us. We try to be good. We love you, Emma and Olivia." The letter was dated 3 weeks before his business trip. That night, after the twins had fallen asleep, Robert sat in the darkened hospital room watching the rhythmic rise and fall of their chests. The weight of what he had missed crushed him. The signs, the pleas for help, the slow erosion of their safety in what should have been their sanctuary. But amid the devastating guilt, something else took root, a fierce determination. These precious girls, with their matching freckles and their mother's gentle eyes, had survived the unimaginable. Now it was his turn to be as brave as they had been. A restraining order kept Vanessa away from the hospital and the Mitchell home. She had been released on bail pending a family court hearing, with strict orders not to contact Robert or the twins. Her carefully crafted public image as the devoted stepmother began to crumble as evidence mounted against her. After 2 weeks of intensive care, Emma and Olivia were finally cleared to leave the hospital. But Robert couldn't bear the thought of bringing them back to the house where they had suffered. The memory of their tiny bodies huddled on that bathroom floor haunted his dreams. "We need a fresh start," he told Dr. Patterson during their final consultation. "Somewhere they can feel safe again." With Martha's help, Robert found a sunlit cottage on Willow Lake, 30 miles from Oak Ridge. The lakeside community was known for its excellent schools and tight-knit community. Most importantly, it was far enough from their old life to feel like a genuine new beginning. The day they arrived at the cottage, the twins approached it with cautious steps. The small house stood at the end of a tree-lined driveway, its blue shutters and wraparound porch giving it a storybook quality. Wildflowers dotted the yard, and through the trees, the lake sparkled in the afternoon sun. "Is this really for us?" Olivia asked, her voice still quieter than before their ordeal. "It is," Robert confirmed, kneeling to their level, "but only if you like it. If you don't, we'll find somewhere else." Emma, always the more analytical twin, inspected the porch steps carefully. "Are there locks on the bathroom doors?" The question broke Robert's heart, but Dr. Patterson had prepared him for moments like this. "The only locks are ones you control from the inside," he explained gently. "And you never ever have to use them if you don't want to." Inside, the cottage was bathed in natural light. Robert had visited earlier in the week with an interior designer who specialized in trauma-informed spaces. Each room featured soft colors, natural materials, and multiple exit points to prevent any feeling of confinement. "This is your home," Robert told the girls as they explored. "You get to decide how we make it ours." Over the next days, they established new routines built around security and choice. The twins selected their own bedding and wall colors, Emma choosing sky blue, Olivia opting for pale yellow. Robert installed nightlights in every room and left hallway lights on all night. Meals became sacred rituals. The girls helped plan menus, assisted with preparation, and always had snacks accessible. Martha joined them, taking the cottage's small guest room and bringing warmth back to their daily lives. Her grandson Miguel, now safe from Vanessa's threats, often visited on weekends, bringing his guitar and teaching the girls simple songs. Dr. Patterson made house calls 3 times a week, conducting therapy sessions on the cottage porch or beside the lake. "Recovery isn't linear," she reminded Robert during their parent consultations. "There will be setbacks, nightmares, moments of regression. Your job is simply to be consistent, predictable, and present." True to her warning, progress came in waves. Some nights, both girls crawled into Robert's bed, trembling from nightmares they couldn't articulate. Emma developed a habit of checking door hinges, ensuring they couldn't be locked from the outside. Olivia collected water bottles, hiding them around the house just in case. But there were breakthroughs too. 6 weeks after moving to the cottage, Emma ventured into the lake water for the first time, laughing as small waves lapped at her knees. Olivia began leaving notes for her father. Not anxious pleas for help like before, but simple messages of love. "I like our new house and thank you for pancakes." Through it all, Robert maintained an unwavering presence. He rearranged his entire career, negotiating a remote work arrangement that required only occasional trips to the office. Before each necessary absence, he created detailed schedules with the girls, complete with video call times and exact return hours, promises he never broke. The family court hearings continued, a necessary but painful process. Vanessa maintained her innocence, casting herself as the misunderstood stepmother trying to discipline unruly children. But the evidence, medical reports, financial records, the twins' testimonies carefully collected by child advocates, told a different story. On a golden September afternoon, 3 months after their escape from the bathroom, Robert sat on the cottage porch, watching his daughters play by the lake. They were building a fairy house from twigs and moss, their heads bent together in concentration, occasional giggles floating across the yard. Martha brought out lemonade and settled beside him. "They're coming back to themselves," she observed, "bit by bit." "They're so strong," Robert replied, his throat tight with emotion, "stronger than I ever knew." As if sensing they were being watched, the twins looked up from their creation. Emma waved, and Olivia called out to Daddy, "Come see our house. It has lots of windows and no locks." Robert joined them on the grassy shore, kneeling beside their miniature creation. Indeed, the small structure was open on all sides, a dwelling without barriers or secrets. "It's for lake fairies," Emma explained seriously. "They need to be free to come and go." "And safe," Olivia added, arranging a tiny leaf blanket inside. "Everyone needs to be safe at home." Robert gathered them close, these wise, resilient daughters, who were teaching him daily about courage and healing. The path ahead would still hold challenges: court dates, therapy breakthroughs, and setbacks, the long process of rebuilding trust in a world that had betrayed them. But here, beside a sun-dappled lake with fairy houses and open doors, they had already begun to write a new story. 10 years later, the lakeside cottage had evolved with its inhabitants. The once simple structure now boasted an expanded deck, a vegetable garden tended by Martha's aging but skilled hands, and a treehouse that Robert and Miguel had built when the twins turned 12. Inside, the walls displayed a chronology of healing, photographs of birthday celebrations, school achievements, and everyday moments of joy that had gradually outweighed the shadows. Emma and Olivia Mitchell, now 17, had grown into remarkable young women. Different in many ways, Emma with her analytical mind and passion for science, Olivia with her artistic talent and quiet empathy, they remained unbreakably connected by their shared history and resilience. On a warm spring morning, the family gathered around their kitchen table, no longer just Robert and the twins, but an expanded circle that included Martha, her grandson Miguel, who was now a music teacher at the local high school, and Dr. Patterson, who had transitioned from therapist to family friend over the years. "Are you sure you're ready for this?" Robert asked, watching his daughters carefully. Emma tucked her straight chestnut hair behind her ear, a gesture reminiscent of her mother, Sarah. "We've been preparing for months. Dad, we're ready." Olivia nodded in agreement, her expression serene but determined. "It's time." The occasion prompting this gathering was momentous. The twins had been invited to speak at the National Child Advocacy Conference in Boston, sharing their experience with professionals dedicated to protecting vulnerable children. What had begun as a small journal-writing exercise in therapy had evolved into something larger. 2 years earlier, Emma had submitted an anonymous essay to a nationwide contest for high school students. Her piece, titled "The Locked Door," had won first place and caught the attention of child welfare advocates across the country. After careful consideration and extensive discussions with their father and Dr. Patterson, the twins had decided to share their story publicly, removing the anonymity in hopes of helping other children and families. "Remember," Dr. Patterson said, pouring coffee for the adults at the table, "you control your narrative. You decide what details to share and what to keep private. And you can change your minds at any point," Robert added, "even if we're already at the conference center." Olivia smiled at her father's protective instinct. "We know, Dad, but we've worked through this with Dr. P. We understand our boundaries." The family's journey to this point had not been without challenges. The court proceedings against Vanessa had concluded years ago with a restraining order and supervised visitation with her own children from a previous marriage. The twins' recovery had progressed in its non-linear way, with milestones and setbacks, nightmare periods followed by breakthrough moments of healing. But through consistent therapy, unwavering support, and the creation of new positive memories, Emma and Olivia had not merely survived their trauma, they had developed a unique strength and perspective that now drove their desire to help others. That afternoon, as they drove to Boston, the car filled with comfortable conversation and occasional laughter. No one would guess the history behind this seemingly ordinary family, the darkness they had overcome, or the light they now carried. The next morning, in a hotel ballroom filled with social workers, psychologists, family court judges, and child advocates, The Mitchell twins approached the podium together. The audience fell silent as these poised young women, so alike yet distinct, stood side by side. 10 years ago, Emma began, her clear voice steady. My sister and I were locked in a bathroom by someone who should have protected us. We were 7 years old, hungry, afraid, and convinced we had been forgotten. Olivia continued seamlessly where her sister left off. But we weren't forgotten. Our Father found us, and that moment of rescue became the first step in a journey that brings us here today. From the front row, Robert watched his daughters with tears in his eyes and immeasurable pride in his heart. They spoke with composure and honesty about the experience that had nearly broken them, but they also spoke about healing, the lake cottage with its many windows, Martha's unwavering presence, the therapy that had given them tools to rebuild, and their father's constant love. Trauma leaves marks, Emma explained to the captivated audience. Some visible, others hidden deep within. For years I collected water bottles under my bed. My sister checked locks compulsively. We still have moments, Olivia admitted, triggers that bring back flashes of that dark space. But those moments no longer define us or dictate our futures. As their presentation concluded, the twins unveiled their initiative, a peer support program for children recovering from trauma, designed to be implemented in schools nationwide. Every child deserves to feel safe, heard, and valued, Emma said, and every child has the capacity to heal with proper support. The standing ovation lasted several minutes, but to Robert, the most meaningful reaction came later, in the private quiet of their hotel suite. The twins, exhausted but fulfilled, sat together on the couch, their shoulders touching in that unconscious way they had always connected. Do you think it helped? Olivia asked softly, sharing our story. I saw 3 different counselors taking notes on your peer support program, Robert replied, and that judge from California asked for the full curriculum. Emma leaned her head against her sister's. It feels like we've come full circle somehow, like we've taken something that was meant to destroy us and transformed it into something that might help others. The next morning, as they prepared to return home to their lakeside cottage, Robert found a small package waiting at the hotel's front desk. Inside was a handcrafted dream catcher and a note from one of the conference attendees, a social worker from Arizona. You have turned your pain into purpose, the note read. Thank you for reminding us that even in the darkest spaces, hope finds a way. As their car wound its way back toward Willow Lake, Olivia held the dream catcher up to catch the sunlight streaming through the window. The colorful threads woven through its center cast prism-like patterns across their laps. That's what healing looks like, she observed thoughtfully, taking broken pieces and creating something new and beautiful. Emma smiled, reaching for her sister's hand. Not just beautiful, she amended. Something useful. Something that helps others find their way out of their own dark rooms. Robert glanced at his daughters in the rearview mirror, these extraordinary young women who had once been terrified children. Their journey was still unfolding, their stories still being written. But the bathroom door that had once confined them had been transformed into 1,000 open windows, each one offering light, air, and the promise of unlimited possibility.